Good morning, everybody. Looking forward to the time here today. I want to give the chance to introduce the rest of the panel. So, Laur, if you want to introduce yourself and your role, since everyone's gotten a chance to meet Ulli and Bob.
Sure. I'm Laur Fiatoa. I work at Helix Sleep. We are a bed-in-the-box company that offers a personalized solution to give everybody literally the best sleep that they can. We also have a sister brand called Birch, which is all focused on organic and natural sleep products, and also a weighted blanket.
I'm going to skip mine because everything is running late.
I'm going to skip mine too.
Fantastic. So as we all know and have heard from our speakers today, marketing and innovation and product development, they rely on a blend of art and science. And as we were getting ready for this panel here, what was interesting to me is, and what stood out is the way in which each of y'all have approached that. Some leaning more heavily on the data side, some kind of taking those data and kind of bringing in the art and the human element. And so, Laura, if you want to kind of begin by speaking to the way in which y'all have used that blend between art and science.
Yeah, I think that Farmer's Dog has a really interesting approach of using data to guide them to make decisions. And, you know, there's a lot of science behind sleep, and we're all a bunch of nerds over at Helix, so we love to dig into, you know, what are the nuances that help every person sleep the best that they can individually. We took all of that information that we had in this very scientific approach to our product development and realized that there's also other opportunities out here that people not only want to sleep really well, but they also have concerns about the environment, and they also want to make sure that they're getting products that are sustainably sourced and they're trying to be carbon neutral. Now, they might not be able to do everything under the sun to be, you know, neutral in all of their purchasing, but when it comes to their sleep and where you rest your head for 8 hours every single day, they want to make sure they're making the best decision. So we took all the learnings from Helix while receiving a lot of customer feedback in regards to what are our textiles made out of, how are we getting our products for Helix, and noticed that there was an opportunity to really own a smaller white space within the same vertical, and that's how we really look to own for Birch Living.
Great. Now, Ulli, you have kind of alluded to that in your previous conversation in the way in which you've married up that data, some of which you got from the shopping network. I don't know if there's anything else you want to build and add on to that.
The advantage to go on the shopping network, QVC, I've worked since the 90s, is today, 2019, the third largest e-commerce platform in the United States. Only Amazon and Walmart are larger. If you go on air, like one, you know, of their top skincare brand, they sell about $25,000 a minute. They go on for 3 hours, $4.5 million a day. I don't think a lot of companies can do that quickly. That's how an IT cosmetic, you know, rises up to $250 million in, you know, 3 years on the shopping network. But it's also driving really fast on e-commerce, but the consumer is really taught to interact, to give, you know, feedback to it. So you get so much more generous feedback from the consumer on the shopping channel. They write in on Facebook, they call in while you are there, they leave reviews, and they are very critical. This is your woman 35 to 65, and you know, she tells you what she wants and what she's upset about.
Now, Bob, you mentioned in your presentation, you kind of talked about some of the vast amounts of data, and we all know that we've got more and more data coming at us, and ingesting that and understanding it can be difficult, really being able to differentiate between the signal and the noise. Can you talk about how you know when you've uncovered a trend or an actionable insight from that data?
Yeah, I have a big one so what's interesting in the baby industry is that people are having less babies. And we have less retail partners to ship it out. So there's a lot of factors going on. But, you know, the fact that people are making less babies, we trace down to apparently there aren't enough people drinking tequila. It's really interesting. It's a correlation right now. No. Probably the most difficult piece is when your team has uncovered something and they don't know it yet. So, you know, my teams expand and contract all the time because of what I do. I work across the silos. And it's tough to to see something in the data and go, oh my God, it's right there. Why don't you do something with that? And then you say, wow, now it's turned into some kind of game show where I have to talk, because you're coaching the team to try and find the insight. Otherwise, they have to kind of be bloodhounds with this kind of thing. So, yeah, I would say that's probably going to lead to our cultural question as well. Is the people side of the data.
So once your team has uncovered that actionable insight or opportunity area, the real planning starts to begin. And so one of the themes of this conference is that shift from solely growth focused to that more sustainability focused and kind of the role of profitability in building sustainable businesses. As a startup, that can sometimes be especially challenging, as we've heard from many of the speakers here. And Laur, can you speak to the changing role of profitability and how y'all have thought about that as you've expanded and grown?
Yeah, I think it's no surprise to anyone. I mean, we've all seen the WeWorks and Ubers of the world kind of coming to call with their spending habits and losses that they've seen. And now that we are able to see all of these financial records, you really do have to take a hard step back and just be like, what is growth? At Helix, we're always trying to grow, but we're trying to do it in a way that not only makes sense for our bottom line, but also allows us to ensure that there's a continuity with how we look at our customers themselves. I think that anybody can grow if you throw money into the market, but the true value that a company can bring is if they don't do it by overspending on marketing, but they look at the incrementality and what's that next marginal dollar that can be best spent against whatever channel you're in, if it's Facebook or if it's affiliate. So I think that looking at profitability as opposed to just year-over-year revenue growth has really shifted our marketing mix and made us probably even immeasurably more critical of how our media is working and putting that back on the partners and creating better relationships with them to set up testing and understanding, the lift that's happening to understand that next best dollar.
Well, skincare product development is very difficult. If you really do a new kind of skincare that we have, so this is not private labeling. We don't take an existing skincare and just drop in, whatever the hero ingredient is, and so we turn this around in 6 months. Ours takes 2 to 3 years because all the clinical studies has to be done, and the whole process and that's fast, 2 to 3 years, and it's very expensive for a startup company. So we got a good idea now what's going to be the next wave of new products in our space. We also try to be innovative, so not doing what everybody else is doing already. I think it's a big part of who we are. Product development, as I said, I give you everything you want except the thing that you want, is very, very difficult to predict where now things are changing so rapidly, and consumer taste and from the politics and, what influences that decisions of the consumer. It's 2 years ago was different than it is today. So having this long product cycle is a very risky thing to make any prediction. You have to do a lot of, instincts that goes with it.
When speaking of instincts, sometimes when you get the data, it can tell you you have an opportunity and it's time to move forward, but at times it can also tell you what not to do. And Bob, you shared an example before the session with us about a time where the data told you needed to stop doing it. Can you share that with us?
And that's the most difficult moment, because you've tried to coach an organization to stop relying on their maybe 20 to 30 years of product development expertise and just really look at the data, except in certain circumstances where data, I think Brett was saying earlier too, data is a guide. So you have to go all the way and say, no, look at the data, look at the data, look at the data, except sometimes, and that's a difficult move kind of, backwards. But it saved us one time. We thought this one car seat called the Alpha Omega Elite, that was a platform of ours, very successful for 15 years. We said, wow, we're coming out with some of this new data in our new product development process. It's got a lot more features. Should we just change the name? And most of the people in the organization said, no, we have so much equity in that line of product. I mean, like equity, that's an interesting word. So we looked into it. We actually ran it through Clarabridge, and the equity that we had in, you know, basically millions and millions of car seats that were out there over the years was kind of negative, right? It wasn't the greatest car seat, but it was the most available. It was everywhere, right? But it was mostly negative. And really that made us change the name, give us the courage or the permission to change the name to Grow and Go. So if you look out there now, it's one of those product lines that has gone from $0 to $100 million. I don't know if it's just because we changed the name. It was more of a point that the organization had to let go. And we have a lot of those.
That's great. So in our, to end the panel, I want to have each of you speak about the role of culture. So as we look out here across the audience, there's a wide mix of people from startups to kind of legacy brands, large corporations. And one of the key differences sometimes between those two is the role of culture and the way that they value and think about data. Not just the culture in terms of one gets to wear jeans and drink great coffee, and the rest of us in the corporate world don't get to do those things, but really how you value data and how you think about building culture and building those relationships internally. So if each of you want to take a few minutes and just talk about the role of culture within your company.
I can go first. I think that, you know, the benefits that we all have at smaller D2C startups, it's very much we can play fast and loose. I think that because of the ability to make quick decisions and having our teams working so closely together has specifically helped us at Helix, because we are a very tight-knit and we're a smaller company. We're able to like shout over to somebody, you know, from the table across from them that's on the product team doing something completely different than what our dev team is doing. And these communications help us to make very fast but critical decisions that happen, you know, every single day, even from the smallest optimizations from landing pages, because a customer was very confused on her journey, and we were able to create an A/B test using VWO, you know, that day. And I think that because we were able to make those kind of very quick decisions, and we are a smaller company, it's really founded on that idea of culture and making sure that everyone's honest and open and accountable, and it gives it like a safe space, so to say, for ideas to really flow freely.
I think that the culture is extremely important. So it depends on what, you know, and I think there's the official culture, and then there's the unofficial culture, which kind of goes into politics, you know, within the different divisions that want to promote and not, you know, want to help or not being helpful, and they show it or not show it. So I think that culture is literally where it comes down to in an organization, you know, how it's going to be executed. And I think it's very, very complicated. I think that culture, corporate culture today, is the most interesting thing, because we haven't addressed it. It's not HR or anything else, and so it goes really into the different division. And so definitely data and everything that, you know, promotes a change or a new product development. There's so many different parts of the company that has to come together. So culture is very important. You know, at our last Mediapost in Lake Tahoe, the lady who spoke for, you know, avocados from Mexico, she actually said that they made an extreme change. They completely outsourced because of the culture. You know, she came out of companies where the culture was always a problem, could never be fixed, and so she outsourced everything.
Does anyone know the rule of 150 in a company, right? It's kind of that moment where, you know, your startup company, you know, has 150 employees, and 150 is the point where you kind of know them all. You might know all of their names, at least know their face in a name, you know, that kind of thing. Once you go beyond 150, and people do it by building, that kind of thing, you have to really, really work on culture as part of the scale. Otherwise, you know, your culture won't scale. That whole, like, I just yell over to somebody in my cube and we're so nimble. You lose the nimble part, you lose a lot. And it's just a fact of life. That's why a lot of founders just bail out. They're like, I got 1,000 employees. I actually didn't want to. I left a 1,000-employee company to do this startup company, so I'm out of here. It just gets weird with politics and all that. What I've found is it has helped is some of the software that I showed up there, there's actually like 150 pieces of software that we introduced across the organization, platforms large and small. And what we didn't want to create was only have this kind of world of like early adopters that like were dying for changes, and then those guys adopt it, and then have everybody else just kind of left behind and saying, you know, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what my role is anymore. I'm not going to be offering up, you know, cost savings. I'm not going to tell anybody I'm keeping something on a spreadsheet, you know, that kind of thing, is an LMS system. So a learning management system. We use Lessonly, real simple system, where we pull in, you know, a lot of the software has a great online university. We pull in the videos, we pull in some text. So they watch a quick video on a specific, let's say it's Salsify, specific subject, like how do I add a product to Salsify? And then they take like a 3 to 5 question quiz, and it kind of certifies them and makes them feel like they're part of the whole process, and it's self-paced, right? So some people learn in different ways. Some people you see, and you can see the results, you know, some people just race through and they're like, wow, you're like a Salsify expert in a week. Like, how did you do that? There's like 40 classes. Other people, you see them struggling a little bit, but those are the people you want to pull aside, and we could do one-on-ones and really kind of help them, because it's typically a hang-up that they still have. They're saying, well, the system won't do this, so I can't do that. And we said, well, let's work on that, you know. Or they say, oh, I've been trying to get that done for 5 years. Like, okay, let's really work on that. Who are you asking about this? So if you dissect the problem, and you can see it, the problem just lift off the person's shoulders, and really that's like the only thing that was pulling them back.
Great. Well, I want to thank all of you for today, and turn it to the audience now for any questions that you may have.
We have time for questions.
I don't know if he sees you.
Oh, no, I don't. Where? Oh, I'm sorry. I don't see.
Hi. So I think a common theme throughout all the sessions has been making data-driven decisions or data-guided decisions. And I think there may be times where, you know, you don't have, or limited data is available, and so you have to make a decision based on a bit of intuition. Obviously, it could be a new channel or it could be a new product, and it's something that you want to do tests after you launch. But when you're initially thinking about, you know, is this something that I even want to pursue? What are some of the things that you think about?
I've got a good one for that. We do the Jeff Bezos model. We take a lot of things from Jeff Bezos. So we're basically taken a lot of the lessons that he has used and baked into Amazon, and we just bake them into our own organization. So we have an Amazon organization, a mini one, that hits all the scorecards and all the things they track, we should have tracked anyway. So I think that part is interesting, but he has the 70% rule. If you're 70% sure, just go with it, you know? And people around the table can still disagree, and then they have the whole agree to disagree kind of piece, but you're still gonna do it. A lot of people get hung up because, oh, you know, Jimmy in sales doesn't like this. All right, Jimmy in sales, you know, it's fine, but we're pretty sure we want to go ahead and do this. We're going to. And then what we do is we pilot it really early without a lot of investment. And then the pilot speaks for itself. Like, look, it did work. You know what I mean? Like we said we can't ever bring all our products into one database. It's like, yeah, you can. So that's what we do. We do the 70%, I'm kind of sure, pretty sure. And it's on track, it's on mission. So we always knew we were going D2C with our brands. But where do we have to start? Back in the warehouses and do all the unsexy stuff first. And now, you know, 5, 6 years later, it's getting out to consumers.
For us, we look at comparable tests we've run. If there's really limited data, we look at similar channels, similar type of messaging. Somehow we can, you know, proxy or triangulate how would this possibly resonate. And then much to your point, again, like the benefit of being like nimble is being comfortable making 70% decisions with 100% of your money. You know what I mean? So I think that changing both the culture of saying even a failure is a lesson and proxying like projections and potential results with other channels has been our like biggest help for like podcasts, for example.
I look into it if it's a big decision that costs a lot of money and it's more risky, or if it's a small decision and costs little money. So if it's a little, then I go with, you know, we learn from our failures. That's the only way, try, and you know, how we really actually learn. And if it's very costly and I still feel strong about it, 70+%, I look how I can protect it. Do I do a licensing with it so, you know, I have a little time to build it? Because after all, I want to be right. So, you know, I see how I can actually buy myself time to prove me right.
I also do the 70-20-10 rule, which is weird. I don't know if these are rules or observations, but 70-20-10 is how I budget each year. So I say there's 70% of the things that we've done this year that pretty reliable, whether it's, you know, our AMS spend, that I'm willing to say, all right, we spent $5 million on AMS this year. I'm willing to bet on that. We've really, really tuned that in. The whole team really understands the variability. They've done so much A/B tests. That's cool. That's 70% stuff we've done. 20% are things that we've tested this year that are in transition, right? We're kind of sure it's working, but we still have some more models to run or things to try. And then I have the 10% bucket, which is moonshot stuff, which that's where I love. That's all my experiential marketing stuff. That's where I did a tiny house, and I gave it away on Mother's Day, and like crazy stuff like that. We're doing an influencer apartment in Manhattan, and you know, like, where's the crazy stuff coming from? And that's the 10% bucket. If that 10% grows, what I found, if it grows outside of that, you get into trouble. A lot of people asking questions. You have kind of more. You're playing more defense. So for whatever reason, that ratio seems to work.
Ricky, panel, thanks very much. We're going to extend this into a round table at the end of the morning. Thanks, everybody.